Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today, we'll be speaking with a 28-year-old single mother and survivor of domestic violence who has competed in 8 shows and is in prep for her pro debut now to continue her momentum from the 2022 season, which started with a first place win at the Mile High and then a second place and, of course, her pro card at USA's. I have been really looking forward to this episode for personal reasons because she's my teammate. And I'm really excited to be connecting with her. So I want to welcome to the show, Allie Martens. How are you doing?
I'm so excited. Thank you so much for having me on this. I've been looking forward to it, and I'm seriously so excited.
Oh, girl, me too. And I really believe everything happens with perfect timing because I believe when we initially, when you run your pro card, I asked you either that night or the next day. And I don't know that you had decided on making a pro debut yet. So it's pretty cool that we're doing it now.
Yeah, my pro debut is this coming weekend. So this is definitely getting me in the mood for everything and setting the vibe. I'm so nervous, but I have butterflies. It's a good nervous.
Nervous, to clarify, nervous for the podcast or for the show?
For the show. I mean, the podcast is exciting, but I'm pretty nervous for my pro debut. It's intimidating.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I got to ask you, do you have anything you do or think about or a ritual before your heel hits the stage?
So honestly, I just try to I love being on stage. I grew up a dancer, so I danced for 13 years, and I try to just get in my zone and kind of tunnel everything out around me besides the stage. And it's just an opportunity to show off all the hard work. So I try to just kind of get in the zone. I don't really have a ritual or anything I do. Just kind of take a few deep breaths, ground myself a little bit.
Oh, for sure. I feel like the best times I've had on stage is after I've taken those deep breaths, reflected on my journey, before stepping up there, just getting really present with yourself.
Exactly.
I like talking to people in line if they want to, but then there's a moment where I think a lot of us just kind of shut off and breathe and get grounded before hitting that stage.
Right. Oh, I'm so looking forward to it. I had no idea I would be doing this many shows this year at all.
Is this the most you've done in a year?
I did 3 in 2019, but they were a little bit more spaced out. I competed that March and then that July and then that August.
Okay.
Or it was March, June, and August.
I almost feel like it's more difficult when they're spaced out like that than when they're closer together.
Right, because we kind of had to reverse diet and stuff in between there. Adam and I actually reverse dieted a little bit going into this show as well, right after USA's. And then, we cut a little bit again and then upped my food a little bit the last week. So it's been a little bit easier.
I'd rather grind we grinded out my whole prep, a lot of the money of the months, super deficit macros, super high cardio, but I would not have it any other way given we got ready and he was able to feed me into the show and I'm having the best reverse ever because of it. And I feel like it's just you look more refreshed on stage too.
Exactly. You don't show up feeling all depleted and just you show up feeling nice and full and energized. And I have so many emotions about this weekend.
Tell us, what's going through your head?
So, since I got into bodybuilding, I had always wanted to be a pro, and I've always envisioned being on a pro stage. And now the fact that that's actually happening, it kind of just feels like a dream. And aside from that, like I'm going to be on stage standing next to women who I've been idolizing for years. And so, part of me wants to like fangirl, like, oh my gosh, I've been following you for so long. Like, let me take a picture with you. And then the other half of me is like, Allie, you got to be calm and cool and collected. It just feels like a dream come true. I don't even know.
That is so cool. Who are you? Did they post the roster yet?
No, I keep getting online and like looking and I haven't seen anything yet. So hopefully in the next couple of days they post something.
What show is it?
It's the Nevada State Bikini Pro. I think it's an amateur
Oh,
and a pro show.
yeah, that
Yeah.
is. We have like a few other teammates doing the amateur one.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, well, I've been talking to Mike. He's been in prep for that one, and I think he's going to be staying with Adam too.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, but this is really cool. So you said you've envisioned this since you started competing. What is that vision in your mind, and how do you intend to make that reality or make that experience like what it is that you're seeking?
Honestly, girl, like I've always dreamed of being on the Olympia stage. I feel like the majority of competitors, like that is their end goal. Like I want to be on the Olympian stage. And I'm gonna make it a goal to myself. I don't care how long it takes me to get there. Like I want to end up there and I will end up there one day. And it's not even so much like I love being on stage. I love the nitty-gritty grind of bodybuilding off stage. I love all of the weeks and months and all the hours of like blood, sweat, and tears put into the gym and meal prepping. And I love the lifestyle. So I can't see myself really ever leaving that kind of lifestyle?
Yeah, isn't that a beautiful thing? Like knowing that because that's a big picture goal of yours and because you love this lifestyle, you will like be more likely to achieve that goal because you are living that life every day and you love it so much that it's like no matter when it happens, it doesn't matter because you still do this.
Exactly. And I have people all the time, especially at work and stuff, and friends, when are you going to be able to eat again? When are you going to stop doing this? And it's like, well, I'm going to be able to eat a few yummy things, after prep, but I don't look at this as like a diet, really. I look at it as like a lifestyle, it's just kind of who I am and like
Right.
part of me.
Yeah, those questions like when will you be able to eat again as if we don't, like I mean sometimes
Right.
but yeah, like I totally hear you on that. And a lot of times I feel like it's such a great opportunity to let other people know that this is our lifestyle. Like I personally like, can't even imagine not prepping meals or not tracking macros. Like it almost just seems weird. Because
Exactly. I've been almost having like anxiety this week. I'm not even gonna lie, just at the thought that like my competition season is coming to an end.
mm,
And as hard as it is, with all the cardio and stuff, I kind of have anxiety like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do with myself now? Like obviously I'm still gonna be meal prepping and lifting and stuff, but not like seriously hard into prep going into a show for a while. Like that's gonna be kind of odd to me.
yeah, I literally just made well, by the time people hear this episode, it will have been a few months back, but I just recently made a post about like kind of grieving that prep version of us because we like shift from prep to improvement season and we have to prepare for that grieving process. And
Exactly.
yeah, it's like okay, I'm grieving like the time, I'm grieving the energy, I'm grieving that vision or that goal. And yes, a lot of the standards and commitments and the habits are the same, but you can't deny the fact that like there is a different demand that we make. So I'm curious, like what do you want out of your improvement season, and how are you making the most of your last bit of prep?
So I'm trying to soak in every little nitty gritty part of this last bit of my prep right now. But my goal for improvement season, obviously, like I want to grow with my physique, but I want to make a couple of goals to balance my personal life a little bit more. So, make time, even if it's just like once a month to have like a girls' night or take my son somewhere around the state new that he hasn't seen yet. Just try to find time to do things that I haven't really got to do too much. Maybe find a TV show. I can't even tell you the last time I turned on the TV, which is probably a good thing, but like that used to be one of my favorite hobbies, and I could binge watch a whole season one night. And now I'm like, okay, I have to schedule basically my whole day out, being a single mom and working two jobs and trying to do this prep. So I kind of have to like pick and choose things I want to spend my time doing. So during my off season, I want to bring a little bit of that back.
Love that. Yeah. And I just think it's amazing that you do have so much going on in your life. You're able to really focus on this. And you just mentioned that you're working two jobs. What is it that you're doing?
So I teach at a cosmetology school. It's actually the same cosmetology school I graduated from 9 years ago, which is it's
Oh,
super weird, right? Um, but I teach there Tuesdays through Saturdays, and then I booth rent. I still do hair on Sundays and then sometimes Wednesdays after I'm done at the school.
no days off.
So yeah, I got Mondays and Tuesdays off, do some fun things with my son, clean up around the house, meal prep, all the fun adult responsible things.
Yeah. Yeah, seriously. Now, obviously, like working two jobs while being a single mom is demanding enough. Working two jobs, period, being a single
Mhm.
mom, period, prep, period. Like these are all very demanding things. And it's great when we can demand a lot of ourselves. And I know sometimes when prep ends, it feels like we're demanding less. You seem like the type of person who likes to have a lot going on, though.
I do. And I feel like I've always been like that. Like I said, I grew up competitively dancing. So I literally would go straight from school to the dance studio. I'd have classes all afternoon and evening to the point that I would like eat my dinner and do my homework in between classes at the dance studio. So I kind of feel like it was just kind of like instilled in me that I'm a very like go, go, go kind of person. I thrive well with that. So I think that's why competing benefits me pretty well, and I have an addictive personality. So that can be a good addiction for me.
Have you had a not so good addiction before?
I have. So I was married for a while and he struggled with alcohol and substance abuse pretty bad and in hand, when you're living with somebody and with them all the time, you are who you surround yourself with. Like my parents used to tell me that all the time. If everybody around you is making bad choices, eventually you're probably going to jump off the bridge with them. And
Mhm.
so I actually, that period that I took a break from competing, I had done a couple of shows in 2016, and then I didn't step back on stage again until 2019. And in that time period, it was honestly like the darkest time of my life. Like I don't think there was a day of the week that I was fully sober all day. And like I said, it was a very like abusive marriage. So 2019 is actually when I left him. I decided I wanted to like clean up my life and like do stuff for myself and started bodybuilding while I was still with him. And things ended up blowing up really, really, really fast. And he ended up getting arrested a couple of different times for domestic violence. And that last time when I fully left him, I had to like leave my apartment. I couldn't even take any of my stuff with me because it just wasn't safe. It was the week before my first national competition.
Wow.
And yeah, he did some slimy stuff. He completely drained my bank account like the day before I was leaving, canceled my airline tickets like 4 days before. And thankfully I had kind of announced on like my Facebook and Instagram, that I was leaving a really bad situation and I didn't know if I was going to be able to make it to nationals. And I made a GoFundMe. And within that 4 days, everybody supported me so much that I was still able to get my ticket and my Airbnb and make it to nationals and stuff. And
Wow.
so, yeah, it was pretty life changing. With that being said, the choices I was making when I had all this free time when I wasn't bodybuilding, I would just go to the bar and like that's not a way I'd like to be spending my time. So,
What shifted
yeah.
in you that made you say, I'm done. I want to be sober. I'm going to commit to bodybuilding again?
I felt like I didn't really have a true sense of myself anymore. My ex-husband was like so isolating. I had lived up in a different town. I moved out of my hometown up into the mountains, and we had lived there for almost 2 years, and I hadn't made a single friend because I didn't go do anything by myself. And he would always go to the gym with me. Like we still worked out and stuff, but not seriously. But he would always go with me. So like I wasn't really able to like talk to anybody or meet people. And I just woke up one day and I was like, you know what? Like I really enjoyed doing that. And like I didn't recognize myself in the mirror, you know? And so I'm not really too sure like what that switch was, but it's like I halfway turned it on because I was like ready to make this change, but I wasn't actually ready to make like a full life change, like with my surroundings and stuff. So then when I started, you know, competing again and it was actually going really well, and I was seeing how he wouldn't be like supportive one day and then supportive the next day. He'd be super supportive. And then the next day, like, you know, tell me how much of a selfish bitch I am for putting all this time into the gym. And I'm a terrible wife because I don't want to go out and get messed up with him. And it just, I wish I would have just like flipped it all at once, you know? But once
Yeah.
I finally did decide, I mean, my life has drastically changed since then for the better.
Wow, Allie, that's amazing. Like, there's a lot in there that I find really impressive. Like, one, just leaving an abusive relationship, one that left you isolated and unable to expand like your social circle and really took you away from your home is incredibly difficult. Most of the times it takes like 9 tries of leaving for someone to.
Girl, I was up there, I think like shoot, I'd say at least 4 times. So I get it. Like he would get arrested and stuff, and it wasn't ever like me calling the cops. Like neighbors would hear fights and stuff because he was
Mhm.
extremely violent. And so, you know, they'd come arrest him. And in the state of Colorado with domestic violence, like somebody has to go to jail. So there's automatically a protection order. So we went back and forth. You know, he'd get in trouble. We'd be separated for a few months. Then he'd come back and he'd say he was sober, and then he'd fall off the wagon. And it was just this cycle back and forth until eventually that's why I had to move back to my hometown. I had stayed in that apartment that I was like with him in. After nationals, he ended up going to jail for a couple of months. So, and my name was still on the lease and he wasn't legally allowed back there. So I fixed up the apartment that he like completely destroyed and moved back. And I want to say like 4 months later, he like kicked in my door at 2 in the morning, and it all went downhill from there. And so then I was like, you know, I'm not like safe up here anymore. So I need to leave so he doesn't know where I am. So I came back to my hometown and he's actually in prison for another like 7 years. So
Wow.
yeah.
Did you know that you needed to leave for a long time, or did it not hit you until like the final time?
Yeah, it didn't really hit me until like that final time. Like he had been kind of crazy. Like he tried to show up to like my gym and stuff. So I had to start lifting at a different gym, and he would like make fake Instagram profiles and use like a text-free app and like was still harassing me and stuff, but I would just ignore it. But that time that I was literally sleeping, and you know, he literally kicked in my door, like the door frame came down with it and everything. And
Mm.
so that was when I was kind of like, okay, like this isn't it's not a good idea for me to like be up here by myself anymore. So,
Wow, that must have been
yeah.
scary.
And it all honestly just like happened so fast. And truthfully, like everything I've been through is kind of what's always like fueled me in the gym and with competing, you know, because like, especially I hate to compare it, but like you're doing cardio for like, say, an hour. And everybody hits that point that you're like, oh my God, I'm going to die. Like, this is it. I'm going to die. I can't do this. And then you push past it and you're like, dang, like I did it. I can do anything. Anytime I feel like that, I'm like, no, like think about what you've been through. Like, feel this pain, like, let it out, you know, and use it to fuel your fire.
Mm. I tend to do that as well when I'm going through something difficult. I'm like, yeah, but nothing's as difficult as what you've already been through. Like when I lost my mom in the way that I did, it was like that was the worst thing I ever could experience. And nothing has yet to cause me the same amount of physical, mental anguish. So I can relate to
Oh,
what you're saying in that like reminding yourself you're resilient and strong and look at how far you've come, like that gives you a lot of strength to say, I'm going to keep going.
Exactly. And I'm a firm believer that like everything, even things that hurt so bad, it happens for a reason. And I always think that reason is to help other people going through a similar thing that you've overcome and gotten over, you know?
Mm. Yeah, and like when you're in that darkness, it feels like it's never gonna end. Like it feels all consuming, and it feels like that's what your life
Exactly.
is. And then you come out of it one day and you're like, oh wow, like there is a light side. And then you fall back into it sometimes, but it's like that's part of life. It's like that inside and outside of the darkness, because that's how we're like growing and learning and
Right. And healing. And
yes.
I totally agree with you.
So I really appreciate just how open you're being. And something that I was thinking is like, when I was working at the counseling center, I had some domestic violence cases. And, as a therapist, I could never say, you need to leave your partner because that's what everyone else is telling them, right? So, like,
Right.
we have to guide them to a place where they're feeling that strength and confidence in themselves. And I'm wondering, like, what it was for you that made you go, like, this is the final straw and I'm ready to demand more for myself.
I'm going to be brutally honest with you. So hopefully anybody that's listening to this, like trigger warning. But he beat the absolute crap out of me the night before my grandpa's funeral.
Mm.
And we had been out drinking and doing other things that night aside from alcohol the night before, and he got completely blacked out, and he was hitting me and stuff and ripped out my earrings and my hair, and he ended up taking my keys from me. Yeah, I was like trying to leave, and he took my keys and my phone and then passed out with it in his pocket, and I was able to get my keys out of his pocket but not my phone. And I had just started working with a coach up there in the mountains, and so it was like 2:30 in the morning. I had nowhere to go, didn't have my phone. I went and I was like knocking on her door, and I hadn't even looked in a mirror, like realized like how bad anything was. I was just like, okay, I need to get help. And a stranger, my coach wasn't answering the door, and a stranger had been like walking her puppy in the middle of the night and saw me. And it turned out, I had like a black eye and a bloody nose and like scratch marks on my neck. And they brought me inside, her and her fiance, and cleaned me up and let me sleep on their couch. And I just like remember I didn't even sleep. I just like laid there and cried because I was like, I cannot believe I'm in this situation. Like, I can't believe I'd allow somebody to do that to me. And then the humiliation I felt like the next day trying to cover up like a black eye and all these marks on my neck to go to my grandfather's funeral, which I tried to cover up, but people obviously, I couldn't cover it all up. Like he got me pretty bad. So I show up at my grandpa's funeral and everybody's asking me what happened. And I'm trying to just mourn my grandfather's death. And then I'm now trying to swallow the pill with the fact that my husband like beat the crap out of me. And that day, I want to say, is a day that like something switched in my mind, but I didn't end up like leaving him until that following week when he had done something again and then went to jail. And then like I said, we went like back and forth again. And I don't know, I kept thinking he was going to change. And then finally I was like, yeah, this is not, you can't like help somebody change that doesn't want to like fix themselves.
Mm.
So,
Yes. And sometimes, like, you can be with someone who does want to change or is willing to work on themselves, and it's still not the healthiest thing for you to be in because of our own personal healing that has to be done from previous encounters or experiences with them.
exactly. And then, yeah, I don't want to make myself sound like a total hot mess, but I just had a couple of years where I like wasn't making the best decisions. So, I had left my ex-husband, got divorced, moved back, and the first gentleman I started seeing was pretty much the same person in a different body. The universe was like, okay, here's this person again. How are you going to deal with it? Have we learned our lesson? And I ended up getting pregnant like 2 months into it. My son is a condom baby. It was not planned at all, but my son is the biggest blessing I've ever had. But
Wow.
a couple months into it, you know, very similar things started to happen again. That physical line never got crossed, thankfully, because I left before it got to that point. But that's when I was really like, yeah, no, I've been here. I've done that before. I'm about to be raising a young man, you know, and I know whoever I bring around him is going to have a very big influence on how my son is going to turn out.
Mm.
And that is not how I want my son to turn out. So I've been single the last almost 2 years, you know, trying to just find myself and figure out my worth and really just know what I deserve. So,
Well, I want to say you said you don't want to make yourself seem like a hot mess, but I'm listening and I'm hearing a woman who is resilient and continuously showed up for herself and did the best she could with the situation she was in.
oh, thank you.
You're welcome. I can't even imagine like going through all of that. And one thing I know about your journey too is like you had found out you were pregnant 3 days before your show, which
Yes.
like girl, first of all, you went through all that with your ex before your first national show, which was news to me. I didn't know that. But then like I'm relating that to like the 3 days before and I'm thinking, what made you, because I'm wondering like, okay, if I was in that situation, I probably wouldn't have taken a test or even attempted. So I'm wondering like what it was that made you go, I should check this before the show, and then what it was that made you decide like I do want to pursue like having this baby and having this protected family.
So I've always my hormones have always been in check with every single show, no matter how lean I get. I've never lost my menstrual cycle. I'm actually on my period right now. I just got it today and I'm like, how? I literally have a show in like 5 days. How does this happen?
That's
And
awesome.
it was weird. So like the last couple of pounds that I would typically lose, like getting close to a show like that, my body was not responding. We kept upping my cardio and dropping my food, and it was like I was almost gaining weight. So then
Hmm.
Adam and I, you know, thought maybe my body was stressed out. So we tried to give me a little more food and cut back on cardio a little. And then I missed my period. And so I reached out and I'm like, hey, I'm a couple days late. Should I be concerned? And everyone's like, no, 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 like it's okay. You know, that can happen. Your body's under a lot of stress. So I just kind of like brushed it under the rug. And I felt like something was a little off. Like I didn't feel like my normal self. I don't know how to explain it. Like I just didn't feel normal. And so I peed on a stick and I was like, I don't know. It was very clear there was a plus sign on it, but I was like, I'm not too sure about that. That could still be negative. So then I peed on a digital one and I'm like, oh, okay. But I was honestly, I started crying. I was so happy because my ex-husband and I tried to have kids. And thank you, Jesus, we did not, because clearly that was not a healthy situation at all for me to be in, let alone a baby. But I did fertility treatments and stuff for 2 years, and I genuinely thought I could not have kids. And I had an IUD after the fact that I thought that wasn't going to happen, and that IUD ended up like rejecting out of my body. So I had it removed like 3 or 4 days before I ended up getting pregnant on accident. I never even got a cycle after I got the IUD taken out. So there was like no signs besides, you know, missing a period that they said I was going to get, that I was just trusting I was going to get, that I was actually pregnant. Um, but yeah, so I knew right away that I was gonna keep, you know, moving forward with the pregnancy and stuff.
Wow, what an amazing, like that to me is almost like destiny, you know?
Right. And the timing of it, it was pretty wild. And to be honest with you, I don't know if I would have left that toxic situation with my son's dad if I wasn't actually pregnant. Like I I don't like to think that way, but I feel as though if I wasn't actually like responsible for another life and like thinking about raising a man, I don't know if I would have had, you know, the knowledge and that thought process to actually like get myself out of that situation again.
That's fair. Yeah, it sounds like having your son like really changed how you supported yourself because it was no longer about you.
Exactly.
Mm.
Exactly. And I still competed, even though I was pregnant. I'm not gonna lie. Obviously, I stopped dieting pretty much right
Did you
away. I
tell
was like,
Adam?
okay, give me a donut, give me some sour gummy worms. But I
Mhm.
got on stage. I had an awesome time. I still placed in top 5, and I promised myself, I was like, this is not it. Like, I am going to step on stage again. And I
Wow.
lifted my whole pregnancy up until the day before I had him, and I ended up having like a C-section, an emergency C-section, and then a hernia surgery a few weeks later. And as soon as I was cleared from all that, I got back on prep and started working.
Wow. When did you tell Adam?
Oh, Adam was like one of the first people I called. I called my mom, obviously. But yeah, I reached out to Adam right away, like right after my mom. Adam knew before my best friends knew.
I feel like I would have done the same thing because I'm like, this is very important. I have a show, but like, and I needed to compete in this show, but also like, can't put this baby at risk.
Exactly. Like he was awesome. Right away, he was sending me prenatals, telling me what to do. Like
Oh my God, I love him.
make sure my body was okay.
Was he on board with you still doing the show?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it was just kind of unfortunate because that was 2020. So I had actually been on prep since like the December before of 2019. And I was planning on competing in March in 2020. And then I was planning on competing in like April. And then they moved it to June. And then they moved it to the one that I ended up doing. So I kept like getting close to competing. And then they would cancel the show because of COVID.
Yeah.
So by the time I actually got to step on stage, I'm like, oh my God, are you serious? Like, am I actually pregnant right now?
Yeah. I can't even imagine, but I just think it's so cool that you still went up there and you rocked it. And I love that you were like so grateful for that situation and for getting pregnant. And it sounds like it was just meant to happen in your life at that time. And of course, 2020 was so like what you just described, very much my experience the whole December, starting prep in December and then like never being able. Actually, I
Yep.
like September. I don't even know when I started. I was such honestly, I forget it's 2022 already. But yeah, like the fact that you went through all that and this was like you were getting your power back and you were like, I'm doing this for me and like I'm stepping on stage. I've been through so much, and then it was like, boom, you're pregnant, and then um,
Yep.
then you had to take some more time off, and then it sounds like right after your emergency C-section, your mindset was already like, let's get back on stage. Is that right?
Yeah. So, and I was like ready to go after my C-section. So before I ended up having Jack, we found out I had a pretty gnarly like umbilical hernia. And at first, I just thought it was a cool party trick. Like I could push my belly button in and then have somebody be like, poke my belly button and I
Oh
could pop
no.
it out, thinking it was funny. And come to find out, like that was like my intestines that I was like popping out of
Holy
my
crap.
abdomen. So they had like mentioned throughout my pregnancy, like you might have to have surgery on this. We'll see, after you deliver him. And I wanted to have like a natural birth. That way I wanted to like not have to take any pain medication, and I wanted to be able to like get back into like physical activity, shortly after having him. And I ended up having an emergency C-section, so none of that happened. And I healed from that and went to my 6-week appointment in hopes that they would be like, yeah, you're good to work out. So they tell me, hey, yeah, everything looks good. Doesn't look like you have a hernia. You're good to work out. And I started lifting, I think it was like 2 or 3 days, and it popped out while I was at the gym. Like I
No.
could literally feel it. And
Did it
I guess
hurt?
it had, yeah, yeah. I had like, and I kept calling the doctor thinking it was like pains from like my incision from the C-section, but it was higher up. So at first they were like, "Oh, you need to wear your belly band a little bit longer." It's just because you had 2 layers of stitches and then staples and blah blah blah. And then I'm like, "Wait, no, there's like something poking out of my belly button." So I ended up having to have another surgery, which put me out like another 6 weeks. And then I just kind of right when they cleared me, I was doing like full body workouts for a couple of weeks and just trying to ease my way back into it. I can still feel where they like stitched up my hernia though on a
Dang.
lot of things like hip thrusters. Every time I let it stretch down to the bottom, I can feel like everything tugging
No,
in my abdomen.
no, that sounds horrible. Are there
But it's
things
okay.
I love that immediate reframe. You're like, it sucks, but I'm fine, everybody.
Like I used to have an outie belly button. Now I got this cute little innie button looking belly button. It is what it is.
That's so cute. Oh my God. Well, I'm really glad that you obviously got that taken care of and it didn't get in the way of you pursuing your goals.
Yeah. Honestly, like every little hurdle, I just looked at it like it's just a hurdle, it's just a little bump in the road. There's always, through all of these preps I've done, not a single prep has gone the way that I have ideally like planned it to go. Like that's
Mm.
just life, things happen and you have to just overcome it and let it make you stronger.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Like we can't expect everything to be perfect all the time or to be
Exactly.
good all the time. And we can't predict when the not so great things happen, even in these intense times of our life or these times when we think, oh, my prep just needs to go smoothly. It's like, well, now, Allie, you've had so many not so smooth preps that I'm sure it feels really good to not have something really major. Well, other than getting your period, but that's nothing compared.
Right.
There's
I'm
other
like, this is a walk in the park. Like, I got this. Last prep was like not the most ideal either, right before USA's. I had a death in the family, and I'm just kind of learning, life just happens and you can't just let it knock you down.
So true. How have these experiences influenced the way that you see yourself or the way that you show up for your goals?
It showed me, like you were saying earlier, that I am resilient, and I've been in some pretty dark places. So I try to, like we were talking about a couple of minutes ago, I try to think about, well, yeah, like this sucks, but I've been through worse and I came out stronger on the other side. So let it just keep pushing me forward. And I'm trying to get more in the mindset of just being open to wherever life takes me. My plan isn't always what's going to happen. And I'm a very A type personality. So I try to
Mhm.
plan everything out a certain way. And I'm learning you just kind of got to roll with the punches.
Oh my gosh. I feel that. I'm like, I need rules and structure and a clear path forward, and then something changes.
Right.
And I'm like, excuse me, this is not on the agenda, but I've learned like, oh, actually, there's a lot of freedom and a lot of empowerment and growth that comes from not needing to control everything all the time.
Exactly. You feel like a breath of fresh air. You
Mm.
feel not as stressed out.
Yes, seriously. Now, in terms of this prep into your pro debut earlier, you mentioned something and I wanted to come back to it, which was you were excited to share the stage with pros that you've looked up to. And I recently had another girl on the podcast. I just asked her this, so I'm going to ask you too, but because she had mentioned this was something she was excited about when she did her pro debut in Tampa, but who are you excited to share the stage with, either whether it's this weekend or not, but just in general as a pro? Anyone come to mind?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. Well, Ashley, the goat for sure. I would love to be on stage with her one day. I think she's absolutely amazing. Jennifer Dory is amazing. I saw Liliana. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. I've been following her on Instagram for a
Yeah.
while. She's not from the US, but she is competing in the same show as me. So that's given me
Okay.
like butterflies a little bit because her physique is just, it's phenomenal. Um, there is a pro, Anya Nicholson. I competed with her here at the Mile High in 2019, and watching her journey going pro and just how crazy her physique is and how just well-rounded this woman is so inspiring to me, and I would love to share the stage with her again one day.
She's so amazing. I hope she listens to this and hears you say that, because she's just awesome. She's someone I've stayed connected with. I really, really appreciate her.
Yeah, and her just dedication, it's unreal. Like I definitely look up to her, and it's been so cool to like go from sharing the stage with her to watching her just
Mm.
dominate like every show she's doing. Like her physique is insane. It's one of the best bikini physiques I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, she's amazing. And when I went to Vegas for Sin City Showdown, Adam Bonilla and Team Elite Physique, they had their, posing class, and I went to that on Saturday. It was so fun. And I a couple times was standing next to Ashley Kay, and I was like, I was like, damn, I'm over here next to the Ashley Kaltwasser with doing a back pose. Like, this is humbling. But
Right?
it was like so cool. I was like, I want to be next to her because she inspires me to be better. And I was like, who else gets the opportunity to stand next to the most winning champion in the world? And she's a total sweetie, and she really contributes to the bodybuilding world. And I've been lucky enough to be on their podcast a few times too. But anyway, I think it will be really cool, and I have no doubt you will share the stage with them.
Hopefully one day, one day.
Yeah. Yeah, you will. I have no doubt, especially because you're in it for the long run. So,
Yeah, well,
did you ever did you ever feel like you maybe wouldn't get to this point where you were making your pro debut? Like, did you ever have thoughts of doubt or concern that you wouldn't make it?
um, yeah, I mean, especially I that was in my head quite a bit this year starting off, just from having a baby, and I'm all natural, so that's something I've always kind of been intimidated by as well, especially like getting higher up in those levels and stuff. But I knew I would make it. I knew I would make it at one point. I honestly thought it would maybe be when I was like a master's or something. I
Yeah.
didn't really think it would be happening this year. So I think that's why I'm just kind of trying to soak everything in because it just feels really surreal.
Did you think it would not be until you were a master's because you're natural and like the muscle density, or for other reason?
Yeah, I've always been told, and honestly, pregnancy helped me a ton with this, which is wild, but I've always been told that I needed to have more mature and more elongated muscle bellies. I was always told I was too small and I needed size like over and over and over again. So I think having a baby actually did exactly what I needed it to do for me because my body had to carry all of that extra weight. So it did elongate all of the right muscle bellies I needed it to, which is kind of weird. Um, but yeah, I thought I would need to be a little bit older and have more mature muscle bellies to be able to achieve that naturally, if that makes sense.
For sure. That crosses my mind sometimes too. I'm like, I'm young in general, but in the sport of bodybuilding, like, you're a master's when you hit like 35, which is so crazy.
Which is crazy. Like, that is not masters.
Right? I'm like, what? Like, you're literally hitting your like you're just probably after your peak. Like, yeah. So I sometimes
Exactly.
do that too. But now this episode's gonna come out and suddenly like everyone's gonna be getting pregnant. All the natural
It's
bikinis.
crazy though. Like, literally, my glutes were like the weakest spot on me pre-pregnancy, and now my glutes are like they're the best part on my body right now, which is wild because they
Damn.
were always like so tiny. But pregnancy did something weird, I guess.
That's interesting. Do you have any inclination as to why that might be?
Girl, I don't know. I even like had asked my doctor, and she was like, the only thing I could think of is like some women hold like body weight in different spots of their body. And I guess that's just kind of where my legs and my booty got pretty thick when I was pregnant. I got stretch marks all over my legs and my butt. I didn't even think about like oiling my legs or my butt. I don't have a single stretch mark on my belly because I oiled that, but
Thing.
I don't know. And then, like I said, I was deadlifting over 200 pounds when I was like 8, 9 months pregnant. So I was trying to build muscle, as crazy as that is, while I was like growing a human.
That's so freaking awesome. And I think like this is a good point of discussion too, because people sometimes get flack for like working out or training hard or lifting heavy when they're pregnant, but it's like you were already living that lifestyle. So I'm assuming that made it safer for you. And it sounds,
Exactly. My
yeah,
doctor was like, anything that you are already doing, you are safe to do that. You can't do anything like laying flat on your back or flat on your stomach. But aside from that, there was nothing that I was not allowed or cleared to do. But that was like one of my favorite parts of being pregnant, girl. The looks I would get from people
I
in the
bet.
gym when I'm like deadlifting. Oh, priceless. It was fantastic.
That's so cool. And I mean, you really have put on so much muscle since 2016. And of course, you weren't pregnant during that whole time, but what do you think are some of the keys for putting on muscle for those listening? Like, what do you think really contributed to that for you?
Um, First off, my relationship with food. I
Mhm.
think the first prep that I did, I was so focused in on just being lean enough. And I had dealt with an eating disorder like all throughout high school and then a little bit in my early 20s. So, like, I didn't have a good relationship with food when I started bodybuilding. So, I feel as though at the beginning, it kind of helped me have a little bit better of a relationship because I was actually like eating throughout the day and not starving myself and then binge eating just once at night or whatever. Um, but during that second prep, I started eating more food. So like the first prep, I would try to eat what my coach had me eat, but I'm going to be honest with you, I'd probably throw away like a third of my meal prep. And so come around that second time in 2019 when I decided to compete again, I followed everything to a T. And then you could see between those two seasons, I developed quite a bit of muscle just because I was nourishing my body more. But I also never had a serious off season ever in between there. Like I said, between 2016 and 19, I was drinking and doing other party drugs and doing things that were counteracting, being in the gym and trying to eat healthy. And then after 2019, I kind of had an off season, but I was not taking it as serious. I'd say like 4 out of the 3 days of the week, I would stick to my plan pretty well. And then I'd fall off the wagon. But this last go around, like I did not mess up on my diet once. I think there was like 2 occasions, like special occasions, I asked Adam, like, hey, can I have a vodka soda? It's like a celebration. And that was way at the beginning of my prep. So I don't know, just sticking to the plan and being consistent, I think is what helped me the most with like growth and everything.
I feel like that's the main key is like a lot of times we want to know or hear like something different, like what this is what made me gain all this muscle. But the fact is the answer is always time, food, recovery, and lifting. Progressively.
Yep.
I mean, it's really just bodybuild. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, you gotta be patient and just trust the process and stay consistent with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really cool when we kind of find that commitment for ourselves and we commit on a level in an improvement season that we would in a prep, or at least have a fair expectation that we can follow. And I love how you said by improving your relationship with food, you were able to nourish yourself more to support that growth. And I think that's a really
Exactly.
important point because there's a lot of people who struggle with their relationship with food. I mean, I've helped hundreds of them, but I think what I'm trying to say here is when you fall into whether it's restrictive eating or it's binging and restricting, you're limiting your potential because you tend to fixate on the wrong things or the things that require most of your attention or demand right in that moment, which is the maladaptive behavior. But when you find
Exactly.
congruency with yourself and you're consistent and you're taking actions that you feel good about, now you have the wherewithal to focus on the goals that really really matter to you, which whether that's life goals or it's bodybuilding goals. But when you're falling into those negative behaviors, it's difficult to have the focus and the energy to put into it because that's what needs most of your attention, is the healing to be done there.
Exactly. And I feel like something that's gonna help me, this is gonna be my first true off season. And I know 100% I'm going to stick to it through this whole off season just because I kind of have gotten in the groove of it. I know that if I'm craving something during this off season, my body's craving it for a reason. And if I deplete myself from it and I don't, or deprive myself from it, sorry, prep brain. If I deprive myself from it, you're eventually going to fall off the wagon and you're going to binge eat, and it's going to be this whole cycle. So that's something cool that I like about, what our coach does, is that we get to do the flexible dieting, like the macros. So on off season, if you're really craving, like, man, like I really need a little piece of brownie or a donut or a muffin or something, like you can figure that out and figure out how to fit that in without you completely falling off of your plan to make it something that's sustainable.
100%. And if you are listening and you're like, I don't think good athletes will do that. It's like, well, how long do you want to be in this? And what can you demand of yourself for the longest period of time without burnout or without falling into disordered ways? And it might take some
Exactly.
experimenting, right? Like it may take some time to figure that out, but if you're willing to give yourself that time to figure it out, whew, it's so freeing. And I just got back from vacation actually, and I'm going to be sharing about how I approached it. But I think a lot of people get worried about situations like that because they haven't prioritized listening to their body, honoring what their needs are, following through on their plan. They lack trust and commitment with themselves because they rely so heavily on a plan to tell them what to do. But we have to be able to not just rely on a plan, but also have reliance and trust in ourselves to not just execute, but also be flexible and be considerate. And when we give ourselves freedom like that, we're better equipped to actually see that this is a choice, not a chore.
Exactly. And that's what I like. I remind myself and I tell people that all the time, like, especially at work, they'll be doing like potlucks and stuff. And it's like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm eating this around you. Or I'm so sorry. And I'm like, no, like, it's a choice that I do this, like I choose to do this. Nobody's forcing me to. Like, you don't need to apologize to me for it. Like, I enjoy what I do. Does it get hard sometimes? Absolutely. Like, do I
Yeah,
get sick of eating turkey and chicken sometimes? Absolutely. But all in all, I love doing it. So,
exactly. Yeah, like the benefit of following through in that way far outweighs anything else.
exactly. And I am very fortunate. My family is extremely supportive. We're a bunch of freaks, is what we always say. My dad grew up like in the gym, he was always into weightlifting and
Wow.
powerlifting. And he used to bring me when I was a little kid. And it's actually the gym I work at now. Still, they have pros all over the walls and stuff. And now my picture gets to go up there. It's pretty cool just because I've
What?
been idolizing it since I was a little kid. But my middle brother, who actually went with me when I won my pro card, he got into bodybuilding a couple of years before I did. And he really inspired me because he had a hip disorder and had 3 reconstructive hip surgeries and a couple of surgeries on his knee because of it. And
Wow.
literally he grew up in a wheelchair and was told he would never be able to do normal life activities again. And he actually got into bodybuilding as a teenager and would always place super high up every show he did, and ended up, he was like, that chapter of mine is closed. I'm over it. It fulfilled a purpose in my life and I'm happy with what I did with it. And he's ready to move on to other things. But he is the reason I started competing, was because watching him do everything it was so inspiring. And then one day he was like, hey, Allie, you should do it. And now here I
You're a freaking pro on the wall.
am.
What gym is it in Colorado, right?
Yeah, it's called Flex Gym and Fitness. It's in Colorado Springs.
I'm writing it down because I'd love to visit sometime.
Oh, I love it. It's a super like grungy old school vibe, like metal plates, the iron plates. It's
Oh,
pretty
that's
grimy.
awesome.
Everybody's so supportive though. Like every time I go to the gym, people are just so friendly to each other. We go up and we compliment each other's form and like gas each other up, and it's an awesome environment. And it's always been like that since I was a little kid.
That is so cute. I was thinking about that today, like at my gym. Honestly, every time I walk into my gym, I'm like, I love this place. I love the people because, and they're not all bodybuilders or athletes necessarily, but I kind of love that because they still like, we're all still so supportive, always cheering.
Exactly.
It's such a great, and I think if I could encourage people like going to the gym, if they want that community and they want that environment, like be open to it. You know, like sometimes you got to take your headphones out or like don't wear your hat in or like take your hoodie off. Like really pay attention to the people around you. Like making those connections can do so much for you mentally.
Seriously, it's awesome, especially when you end up, going at the same time every day and you start to notice it's like the same people. They always help hold you accountable. Like there's been mornings I walk in there and I'm just like, I don't know if I want to be here. And everybody helps gas each other up. They're like, yes, you want to
Yes.
be here, you get to be here. Like, go kill that workout. I love it.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Like just having people who see you and recognize like your journey and your process and they don't judge you for it because they're in there and they're having a bad day or they've had a great day and we just all support each other. And I don't know that this happens at every gym. I think I've been pretty lucky, but I would say the gym I'm at currently is the most community oriented one I've ever been at. And I just feel like it's such a strong group of people and it does make a difference. And it sounds like they've watched you, a lot of those people have watched you grow up.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's still the same owners and stuff too. So
Oh, that's so cool. I
it's so
love
cool.
that. Man, that's amazing. Now, I would love to hear, like, because I know this is really, it sounds like this is going to be the last show of your season. So I would love to hear, like, if you could walk us through the feedback you've received at every show over the years, or a couple things that stand out to you, how you've worked to improve them, and like, what are you hoping to bring this weekend?
Absolutely. So, like I said before, every show I had done from 2016 to that national show in 2019 was that I just needed to be bigger. They liked my proportions, but I just needed to have more muscle. They just thought I was a little too tiny. The first show I did, I came in too lean, and they told me I was lean enough to be a physique competitor, which is not what they're looking for bikini. So, in between that first show, I believe that was the Tokyo Joes. Then I had done the Rocky Mountain that same year. I
Mhm.
didn't come in lean enough, so we had kind of filled me out a little bit too much. And then 2019, every single show, they said I needed bigger shoulders, bigger glutes, bigger hamstrings, just everything was, I needed to be bigger. Um, so I really, that last show I had done was the Mile High before I had went to nationals. The guy told me, he was like, really, you should just be eating a steak every night for dinner. Like your glutes just need quite a bit of size. So then
Wow.
when I went to nationals, I got center of second call outs. They said same thing. My shoulders and my glutes specifically needed more size. So that is what I had focused on from 2019 all the way until we kind of chilled out on my glutes. I want to say like 3 or 4 months ago. Up until then, I was training glutes and legs 3 times a week. So I mean, that was like my main focus was mostly, glutes and shoulders, hamstrings, glutes, back and shoulders. And my feedback at USA's was that they wanted to see my shoulders fuller and they wanted to see my glute hamstring tie in a little bit tighter. So since USA's, we have been hammering my shoulders, and I definitely think my glute hamstring tie in has tightened up quite a bit.
Mm.
Um, my shoulders, I believe, have some size. I'm going to be totally honest with you though. The last couple of weeks, I've been dealing with some pretty bad body dysmorphia. And poor Adam probably thinks I'm crazy. I'll be like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm really bloated and I'm watery. And he's like, Allie, no, but okay.
Oh, man.
But I don't know. I feel like my shoulders have gotten bigger. I have a shoulder injury, so it's hard for me to like go
Mm.
super heavy with shoulders. Um
Is this a long
I did
standing?
just start taking creatine for the first time in my life ever.
Oh, wow.
about like 2 months ago. So I feel like that's kind of helped a little bit too.
Definitely makes a difference. Is this shoulder injury something that's been there for a while or is it new?
Yeah, no, it's been there since I was like 8 or 9. I can literally dislocate my shoulder without touching it,
Damn.
which is, cool and all. But like things, if I'm laying flat and I'm like benching or certain movements with like rear delts, it can pop out on its own without me actually forcing it to, and somebody has to pop it back in for me. So I've been told I have like a torn labrum and that my tendons and ligaments, I guess, are a little bit more stretchy than they should be. So that's why it like slips out. But it doesn't like cause me pain or anything on a daily basis. So I've just never really done anything for it. I've done like physical therapy and I do stuff every day at home to try to tighten it up, but not something too serious. I don't think I need like surgery on it or anything anytime soon.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you don't need surgery.
Right. I mean, they told me years ago, but I'm like, hey, it still works just fine. So
Yeah, it sounds like you've learned to live with it.
exactly.
Man, well, that's so cool. And would you say at USA's that you won, like, I mean, your back pose was strong. Like, would you say that
Thank
that
you.
made a big difference?
Yeah. So it's funny. My front pose used to be like my strong pose, and my backside was like my weak side. And I
Oh,
feel like it's kind of flip flopped now. I feel like my backside is definitely my strong point. And we've fine tuned my front pose a little bit to twist my hips more. Because I feel like I was a little bit too squared up. And it was a super easy fix, just how I was distributing my weight on both of my feet. I mean, the slightest little change, and like I was able to twist my body more. And then just like flexing my lats a little bit more in my front pose also helps my delts kind of cap out a little bit more. So between fixing my posing and what we've changed with my training, I'm hoping, we made those improvements that they're wanting to see.
no doubt. That's
And
super.
regardless, like I'm going into this show, I could get dead last place and I would still be the happiest woman ever because just the fact that I am on a pro stage, I just want to soak everything in like a sponge. I want to pick everybody's brain and get the best advice on like what to do moving forward and get feedback on what I need to grow and stuff for next season. So I'm so excited to even have the opportunity to be there.
Love that mentality. And that's such an exciting time. How have you been doing with your posing, like just your pro routine? Like, are you adding a lot to it or did you just add a little? Like, where'd you take it?
So we actually completely changed like my whole entire routine.
Dang.
So I have a pretty large tattoo on like my hip and my leg, which
Hmm.
was done in that time frame that I was not bodybuilding and I wasn't making smart choices, because why I would ever put a tattoo where I put a tattoo is beyond me when I knew I would still be bodybuilding, because it covers up like my whole entire side glute and like my whole leg.
Wow.
So
Why did
I've
you
always
get it?
what?
Why did you get it?
Um, I wanted some ink therapy and I wanted a big piece and I wanted it to be somewhere that I could like cover up, when I was working
Mhm.
and stuff. So in my mind, I'm like, shoot, let's do it on my leg, which was like fine at an amateur level, because I could just favor one side. I would always favor my right side because you can see all the definition. But
Yeah.
at a pro level, they really want to be able to see that you can pose on both sides and that you're balanced all around. So we've switched up my routine so that I'm now posing on both sides and show off
Wow.
everything a little bit.
Work it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've been practicing every single day. I love my posing coach. She's amazing. She'll even do it like via FaceTime and she'll take screenshots and screen recordings and draw on it, like the changes she's made and stuff. And she's awesome.
Now, before I ask you your best advice, I'd love to just hear like how you structure your days with so much demand and with being a mom as well. Like how are you structuring your days? How do you approach balancing all these things?
So I am, like I said, very thankful for my family. My family is like my backbone. If it wasn't for them, like I would not be able to do any of this. Um, I only work out while my son is sleeping because I have terrible mom guilt that, I'm already working and stuff and missing that time out of the day with him, that I don't want to spend the time that he is awake and the time I'm not at work, not with him. So I either work out really early in the morning before work or pretty late in the evenings. Um, that way, it's at the beginning or the end of the day, it's taken care of, it's out of the way. And I try to do my meal prepping and stuff on my days that I'm home and when again he's sleeping and napping. So
Yeah.
I try to do all the fun activities with him in between, like everything.
Wow.
I schedule out literally from the moment my alarm goes off. Like I have everything planned out until the moment I go to bed. Unfortunately with prep, like that's kind of how I have to do it to be successful. I even schedule out relaxing time, or like I'm gonna nap from this time to this time because Jack is napping from this time to this time if I get my stuff done. And I just try to plan everything out. I will say my social life has kind of taken a hit during this prep, especially being a mom, just because the little bit of free time I do have in the evenings and stuff once he is asleep, I kind of want to take that quiet time to myself because I don't get much quiet time to myself.
Yeah,
But somehow, some way, it's all been working out.
that's awesome. And that explains then why part of your goal in the improvement season is to have more girls' night outs and time for you.
Exactly. And like I've even gotten questions like, when are you gonna start dating? I'm like, yo, I don't even have time for like my friends right now, let alone to just be going on random dates. Like I'm good.
For
I gotta
sure.
figure out how to balance everything else first.
Yeah, and I'm sure as you like have that balance established or like you're giving more time, it'll naturally happen.
Yeah. My cardio got super high this prep. I mean, as I was kind of expecting it to, since I just had a baby, things are different than they used to be. I used to like not have to do much cardio at all. And I've made it a thing when it's not like crappy weather outside. I have a backpack carrier, so I do like the majority of my cardio with my son on my back. That
That's
way he gets
cool.
outdoors and I take him to different parks, that we hike to, and we make a fun thing out of it. He enjoys it, makes my cardio more exciting.
That is so cool. I love how you've been able to bring like that value of doing that for yourself, but also for him and making it work that way. Like I guess you could say kills two birds with one stone.
Exactly. And like, yo, he's living the life. He gets to go play at a park and then get carried around. Like, lucky. He's
That's
getting heavy.
I bet. So it's like as you lose weight, he's gaining weight and it works out perfectly. Keep that demand
Yeah.
high on your body.
And he's a whole workout in itself. Like he's figured out how to open all of like the child lock things on all of the cabinets, and he knows how to open all the doors, and he's climbing up on everything, and you
Oh
literally
boy,
can't take your eyes off of him because yeah, he's very curious.
that's too cute. I love that. Well, I am so grateful that you've been so open with us. I feel like me and you could honestly talk for like hours. Um,
Right.
and I feel like we've only really scratched the surface. So I kind of want to open the floor really quickly to you. Like, is there anything I didn't ask you that I should have or that you would like to expand on?
Girl, I don't know. I feel like we talked about a lot. I don't know. I do just want to say, I opened up and shared all of this not as like a, oh my gosh, she's been through a lot, but I want to help other women, that are going through the same thing or have been through some similar things, and just let everybody know that you can make whatever you want to make happen. Whatever your goal is, you can take the steps to get there, and no matter what kind of situation you're in, it's not permanent. And so I don't know. I wish I had somebody, to remind me that, or somebody to open up to about that kind of stuff when I was going through those things. So I'd love, if anybody wants to know anything more or needs some support, I'm here. I love to help out and help inspire other people.
Oh, That's so cool. I get that vibe from you too, that you're very committed to like supporting others through this, and you're using what you've experienced as a way to support others, and you recognize like this is something that people go through and that you weren't alone in it and others don't have to be either. Just to kind of expand further on that, is there anything you would want a woman listening who might be in a situation like your past was, like anything you would want her to know or hear?
Just that you are deserving and you are worthy, and you can give yourself the whole entire world, and nobody should ever put your light out. Let your light shine bright.
Yeah, I love that you can give yourself the entire world. Now, kind of, I guess, expanding off that, what would your best advice be for someone who's never competed before but would like to? And then your best advice for someone on their road to pro?
My best advice for a first time competitor, somebody that's just thinking about doing it, freaking do it. Because not just, the whole glitz and glam getting on stage thing is exciting, but the whole entire path, the journey, and like proving to yourself that you can actually do that. It is seriously the most empowering thing in the whole entire world. Even if it's just to do one show, I think everybody should experience that. The self discipline you learn throughout the journey is unreal, and the confidence boost that you get through completely doing a body composition on yourself, like recomposition, is also unreal. So I always urge people to, take a leap of faith, do it. And anybody that is on a road to pro, my best advice is just not to give up, stay consistent. If you do something long enough, you're going to get there. That's why pros turn pro, because they stayed at it. They never gave up. They kept going. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. And obviously, we're all going to be very excited to see how this pro debut went. And by the time this episode comes out, you'll have already made it. So can you let everybody know how they can connect with you and follow you into your improvement season?
Yeah. So my Instagram handle is IFBB Pro _Alexandra. That's pretty much the only social media I'm on. I am on Facebook. It's just Allie Leaper, but I honestly don't get on there very often. But yeah, I post a lot on my Instagram. So
That's awesome. I actually never thought to ask you about your last name.
so that's so funny. Yeah, legally it is Martens, which is my ex-husband's last name. Your girl has been busy, and I know that's a cop out, so I haven't gone and changed my last name, because when you change your last name, you have to change it with my cosmetology license and with my car registration, credit cards, and banking, and it's just a lot. So that's something I'm going to be doing in the next couple of weeks as soon as my competition season is over. And yeah, my son has my maiden last name, thank goodness, but my maiden last name is Leaper, not Martens.
Good. So if people
Yeah.
if people hear this, then maybe by the time this comes out, they should be looking up Allie Leaper.
Yeah. Yeah, now it's a whole ordeal with like the pro card and stuff too.
Oh my
Lovely,
gosh.
but it's fine. I'll take all the steps and change it in a little bit.
Yeah, and then it sucks too because like on NPC News, it's like Martins, and then it'll be Leaper.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I know my sister, like when she got married, she paid someone to do all of it for her. So I know those services are out there.
Oh, that is definitely worth the money then, because yeah,
Yeah.
that's I've been procrastinating it just because I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so much that I have to change.
Yeah, well, I hope that ends up being a smooth process for you, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here. And I'm going to put that information in the show notes page. So to all of you listening, that's always on celestial.fit/podcast. Of course, if you're listening right away, it'll be at the top of that page. If you're listening in the future, just scroll down to the category section, which is alphabetized, look for Allie Martens, and you'll be able to see not just the links, but also full breakdown of the episode, from an episode summary to episode timestamp. So you can go back and listen to certain things that really resonated with you or that you want to hear again, or even a breakdown of the topics we cover. So you can tell all your friends or your teammates to listen and tell them exactly why. So Again, that's on celestial.fit/podcast. And as you guys listen, we always love to see, or after you listen, that you did and what your main takeaways were, or if you liked it. So screenshot it and tag us on Instagram. It's always so cool for not just me, but for the athletes to get your feedback. And it goes a long way, I think, in generating that community feel that we've been able to all build together. And it's just so exciting. So Allie, thanks for being a part of this.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. And to everybody listening, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this